Welcome back for part 2 of the 2008 Acura MDX front axle inner joint reboot. Also see links in the video's description to some of the products used in this video. Alright, we're going to do some cleanup first before we put things back together. So I've got a wire brush. You may want to try a solvent, but I'm going to go with that for now. Not shown, I added some anti-seize compound to the splines in the knuckle where the axle passes through. Okay, and then on the back side, bunch of dirt in there. Okay. And then there is a black ring right below the sensor here. So that black ring is supposed to put M77 on there. And that helps with lessening vibration. So here's the Honda M77 assembly paste. So this is a moly paste. That's what this is. Okay, that's good enough. Not going to worry about that too much. Alright, so I need to replace the set ring on the intermediate shaft. That came in the kit. One is right here. Let's flip it over the edge there. There we go. Just pull it off. Here's a new set ring right there. I'll just kind of run it around like this. So I got it started in the groove over here. I'm just going to kind of force it around and pop it in like so. The interior of this and the outside of the intermediate shaft has super high temp urea grease on the splines. So I'm going to put some of that here. That's what it looks like. Part number is 08798 9002. I got a brush. Just spread that on here. A little more. Probably too much, but we can take it off. All right. Every 2 to 3 splines, you're supposed to take it off. All right, so I have a screwdriver. I'm just going to go around and take some of this off. All right, I think that's good. Yep, looks like it's out all the way. Good. Now that the axle's inner joint has been reinstalled, we're going to tackle the ball joint boot replacement. The only OEM or aftermarket boot I could find is sold by Phoebus, and it's shipped from Europe. After purchasing it on eBay, it took 2.5 weeks to arrive. The part number is HBJB-PL. The only alternative is a lower control arm replacement, which is not cheap. I'm also going to hang the axle up so it's not dangling by the inner joint. I ran out of bungee cords. I only have one actually, so that's why I'm doing this. Okay, so I added a zip tie up here and swung this all the way around. Get this kind of out of my way while I work on this ball joint boot. So I think I'm just going to cut that off. There's no snap ring or anything like that on here. So that's good. Don't have to worry about that. The ball joint itself, Seems okay. It's pretty tough. It's going to tear it up here and just take it off. Grease looks pretty good. It's not bad. I don't see a lot of dirt in here really. It's a darker color. I'm not sure if that's the original color of the grease, but to me it doesn't look bad at all. So I'm just going to re-grease this and put a new boot on. Alright, so I got a wood chisel because it's flat down here. Don't like using tools like this because this is meant to be used for carpentry. So we're going to do it anyway. Okay, see if I can get a screwdriver in there. There it is. Yeah, that's definitely metal. Or some hard plastic. That's tough. Alright, so we've got that off. We'll put the new one on now. Alright, so I've cleaned the grease out of here. You can see it's got some stiffness to it. So I think this is just fine. I don't feel anything rough in there. It doesn't move at all, so I think this is just fine. So we're going to pack this again with grease, and then we'll put some grease also inside the boot. We need to keep grease off of these surfaces here where the boot's going to contact. Now, in the service manual, they don't mention any special type of grease. I've seen people mention moly grease, and so I'm just not going to worry about it. I have some all-purpose grease here. Usually Honda, if there is a specific grease that they want you to use, they'll name it in the service manual. I'll clean some of this off in a second. We also need to put some grease inside the boot, right up in the top corner here. Yeah, I'm making a big mess of this. That's no big deal though. We'll clean it up. Alright, so I just put some in there. That's fine. And clean this off here. I'll try to pack some more grease in there. Let me wrap some tape around here. Hopefully that'll hold. Can't see the back side of this very well. Alright, I think I'm going to call that good. I'll take the tape off. Okay. Alright, so then we'll just drop this on like that. Okay, so we have to get some tools to get this to go down all the way. Alright, so I think I'm going to try my ball joint press kit. If you have like a piece of PVC or even a metal cylindrical shaped item like this, that should work. This is from the 27023 press kit. This is E from that kit. And it just barely fits over that, as you can see there. I put a little bit of grease on the inside right down here just to make sure that we don't damage the boot. Put some more on there. Okay, slide that down. Yeah, I think that might work. like so. Get that nice and straight. All right, so I've got a 22 millimeter. I'm kind of press this down. Watch this, make sure it's going down straight. Looks like it is. Okay. Take this off now. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is wipe it off, just get all the grease off, and then I'm probably going to throw some silicone on here. Try to preserve that. All right, so I've got some silicone spray lubricant. Not sure how much this is going to help, but we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a fighting chance here. So I'm going to let that just dry on its own. So I'm just going to cut this. So take that off. Take the axle and set that aside. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to lift this onto here. And we're going to have to also get the axle in kind of almost simultaneously. Okay. And so the ball joint is on there. We'll put the axle in next. There we go. Turn the wheel a little bit, hopefully. There we go. Pull this up here. You get this part of the knuckle in the strut now. Get the axle in the way. Lovely. Okay, let me get one of these bolts in. Go, there's one. Alright, so I'm going to try leaning against this with my shoulder and try to get the bolt in. There we go. Got it started. So yeah, I would imagine that a ratchet strap, if you took a ratchet strap and hung it from here up to the strut, just kind of cranked it, that probably would work very well. There we go. Okay, put our nuts on. Swing this back around this way. Got that started. Let me check out our ball joint. Looks good. Alright, so I'm going to run this one down real quick. Okay. Alright, so this nut and bolt combination, you're supposed to replace them. I don't have new ones, so we're just going to go ahead and install the old ones. I will replace them later on. The torque spec on this is 156 foot-pounds, so quite a large number there. So I have an impact socket, don't have any chrome sockets that size. And I'm just going to kind of use my legs more than anything to tighten this up. That's pretty easy. And this one. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to put the caliper back on. I am not doing any sort of brake job or anything like that today, so I'm not going to grease a bunch of stuff before I put it back on. I'll probably do a separate video on brakes after I get the engine work done. So let's take the pads out of here. I'm going to leave that up there for now. Okay, this is the outer pad. Set that aside. It's got a little life left in it. And then the inner pad right there. Alright, so we're going to put the caliper back on without the pads now. Looks pretty good. Looks like the boots are fine in there. So. That one's started. Okay, and then start the second one. Alright. Alright, so I've got a 19. I'm just going to tighten this down. Alright, so I'm going to tighten the bolts down. They're 19 millimeters. Torque spec is 101 foot-pounds. Alright, we're going to put the ball joint nut back on. That's what it looks like. This is a brand new one. Part number is 90365 STX A00. Unfortunately, I was going to use a crow's foot socket on this to see if I could tighten this down. The spec, I do not have one. The torque spec is 76 to 83 foot-pounds. So quite a bit of torque. So you're going to want to get quite a bit of leverage on this to get this thing tight. Alright, so I got a 19 millimeter here. I'll put this bar on here. I think we're pretty close. Go a little bit, maybe one more turn. I think we got it. Okay. I've got quite a bit of leverage with this bar, so I think that's going to be good right there. They just need to line up the holes to put the pin in, so I'm going to do that next. Alright, so there is the ball joint. I was putting the nut on. I just wanted to talk real quick about the holes. So there's a hole right there, as you can see. I marked that off on the side of the knuckle. And then there's a hole 90 degrees from that one on the other side. And so basically every 90 degrees there are holes. Alright, so I'm going to install the pin. Now I know on the Honda Pilot you're supposed to replace these pins, but for whatever reason the service manual didn't mention replacing the pin on this car. So again, this is what it looks like. It's kind of a weird shape. Right here, and slide it over, and it locks in. Alright, so we're back up top. I'm going to finish off this line here and the brake hose. So what we're going to do now, put this bolt in. And the torque spec on that is 16 foot-pounds. That is a 12 millimeter. I'm just going to tighten it down with the impact. Alright, so we're going to put this bracket on here. And there's a little locator tab right there. It goes in here and up there. Okay, that's 10 millimeters. It's probably about 8 or 9 foot-pounds. I'm just going to tighten it down with the impact. All right, and then the last thing is just this bracket here that goes right there. That's a 10 millimeter. Again, probably about 9 foot-pounds or 8 foot-pounds. All right, so we're going to put our axle nut on. I did put a little bit of clean engine oil on this surface of the nut. Start that by hand, 36 millimeter socket. So let's hit the surface. We just need to tighten it down to spec now. All right, so I've got the screwdriver in here to hold the rotor in place while I tighten this nut. Torque spec is 242 foot-pounds. And this torque wrench goes to 250. So it's not a good idea to get anywhere close to the max that the torque wrench can handle. So I'm going to go to 220 first, see how it does, and then we'll kind of gradually step up from there. So I hope I don't break the torque wrench, but we're going to give this a shot anyway. 36 millimeters. Okay. And normally I would use my feet because my shoulders are terrible, but did okay. Torque wrench is pretty heavy duty, so we're going to go up a little more. I'm going to go to 235. Okay. And we'll go to 242 and finish this off. Alright, we made it. Torque wrench survived. Take the screwdriver out. Alright, so I spun the wheel around, and you can see right there we can stake our axle right in this little spot. So I'm going to grab my broken screwdriver. You can use a punch or whatever else you might have handy. Put that right in the center. A little further. That's pretty good. Alright, so I need to lift the caliper up so I can compress the piston and then put the pads in and then put this back down. Again, this is not a brake video, so I'm not going to show a whole lot of detail here. So I have a 17 millimeter. And then a caliper slide bolt back here. Okay, there it is. And we're going to swing this up. I'm going to take an S-hook temporarily. Hold that onto the strut there. Alright, so I'm just going to take a little scrap piece of metal here. What we need to do is collapse this piston in a little bit so we can get our pads on. So I'm not going to go very far, because if you go too far, then you'll have brake fluid shooting possibly out of your reservoir up there. So we're just going to do enough to get our pads back in. Right there is good. Just collapse this in a little bit. That's probably enough. So we probably only need roughly 1/4 inch of space. We're going to drop this back down. So I'm going to put the inner pad in. It has a squealer on it right there. There we go. That's in. And then the outer pad. Drop this down. Hopefully that will settle over the pads correctly. There we go. Yeah, so you don't need very much space. This back on. And we're going to put our bolt back in. Alright, so I'm going to tighten this bolt down to 53 foot-pounds with the 17 millimeter. Alright, so there you have it. There's rebooting the axles inner joint for the 2008 Acura MDX. And along the way, we also had to reboot the ball joint on the lower control arm. That was not a planned activity. It's just something that came along with the territory. So hopefully this information was helpful, and thanks for watching.